So you mentioned, who will lead your organization's transformation. So let's talk about the you. Who should take charge? Who should be leading this transformation?
Well, to me, there are really two very key participants for a complex, and most incumbent companies are complex. You've got existing process, existing infrastructure, existing mindset. If you've been very successful, you have existing paradigms. Just getting the employees to look at things from a different perspective can be a very big challenge. So that, I think, leads to the conclusion that you need a very senior sponsor that's prepared to move aside internal constraints, the established thinking, the established process, or perhaps you now need more attention to detail than you did before. So I think the internal sponsor is either going to be the CEO or someone very, very senior working for the CEO that's very well regarded and very respected in the organization, because he's got to shift mindsets. And I think that can be a real challenge for most of us, because humans don't like change, and undergoing that process can be very painful. The second key person, I think, is the Chief Transformation Officer. And there's a wide range of roles you can pick the transformation officer from. It could be someone in technology. More often it's someone in the business. It could be someone that is very familiar with the operations. And one of the things that I find as you rise to the top to take these jobs, the Chief Transformation Officer job, is that you need to be very broad. And most people may not have had the breadth as they rise to the top. So those are the two, I think, very important positions to consider.
Is it useful for a company to think of siloing off this operation, having a startup within the company, or is that not useful to the whole process of transformation?
I think there are circumstances where that makes sense, where you're doing something completely different. Perhaps there's not much synergy with the mother at all. So you're going into an area that's really a different product for a different market. And I think then isolating the group, because one of the things that people underestimate is the kind of culture you need. And so you want to isolate it fundamentally because you want a different way of looking at things, you want a different culture. And that could be a reason to do that. But I find that most incumbent companies, they are not doing something that is really 180-degree different. And therefore, there are certain leverages by putting it as a unit within the organization. And there's another very important reason, because you really want the transformation effects to eventually permeate throughout the mother organization. And therefore, if you separate it, then you'll find difficulty in pulling all that knowledge, learning, and cultural aspects back to the mother, because you'll be seen as, well, this is a kind of a foreign entity. So from that perspective, if the objective is really to either permeate the mother with the daughter's attributes eventually, or eventually grow the daughter to become the mother, then I think a closer association is required, and therefore you cannot hive it off.
We'll talk about the cultural aspects in a while, the corporate culture. But first, can you share with us about the statistics behind this? Why is it so many companies fail when it comes to digital transformation? What do the stats tell us?
Well, the stats from all research, whether you look at the major management consulting companies like Bain, BCG, McKinsey, or you look at any research that has been done on the topic, you'll find that the majority of transformations fail. Between 70 to 92% of transformations don't meet their objective. And in our work in this area, my co-author Jun Kyu and I have basically peeled the onion on this and found that there are 5 major reasons. The first is putting the solution before the problem. You're not clear what the problem is, but there's so many solutions floating out there. The second is really overwhelmed by the complexity that we discussed. The third is really treating it as mostly a technology issue. Number 4, while you may have many ideas, ideas are not innovation. And in order for an idea to become an innovation, it needs to pass through 3 hurdles. It must be desirable, it must be viable, it must be feasible. And the final reason, number 5, is something I think everybody's familiar with, is really the lack of the talent. How do you assemble the talent? And also, I alluded to this earlier that at the top of the transformation team, you've got to be very broad. But you also need people who are experts in certain areas. And this breadth and depth must come together as an organization.
Really exciting. So when we think about the reasons for failure, what do you think seems to be most prevalent in terms of the examples that you've come across? You mentioned cart before the horse, thinking of the solution before identifying the problem. Can you give us some examples there?
I would say that the top 3 are probably solution before the problem, the fact that treating it as mostly a technology issue, and complexity. Solution before the problem, I think, is something that many companies experience. The executives, the CEO may be out there attending a conference and the topic's on AI. And when he comes back, he's saying, okay, we got to do AI, right? It's the in thing. And of course, if the CEO says, let's do AI, everybody's going to fall in line and say, okay, let's do AI.